Hello, hi. This is Our 3 Cents. We're a podcast.
That's how you want to start it?
No. Hello, and welcome. This is Our 3 Cents on our special episode, special 20th episode. I'm Laura.
I'm Molly.
I'm Bailey.
And let's just go. So this is a special episode.
Yes, why is it special, Laura?
We're doing a themed
Yes.
Murder mystery.
Yes.
True crime.
Yes.
Themed episode.
Yes. As you recall,
from a couple episodes ago when we talked about it, I got this idea from My Favorite Murder, the podcast that I mentioned. And to go off what Bailey just asked before I started, they do, so like one of them says what murder they're doing, and then they just explain it, and like the other one sometimes doesn't know anything about it, has never heard of it or anything. Sometimes they do, but mostly they just go, oh my god, that's terrible. That's all they say.
Okay, good. Because I can do that.
Yeah. That's mostly all they say, or they're just like aghast that these things happen in the real world, or whatever. What I'm gonna do, I have some parameters that we're gonna follow. We have a statistics and facts section.
We have a tell them about your stack, Laura.
Oh, I have an 8-page.
It's
paper
8
clipped.
pages.
Oh
I'm
gosh.
so ready.
Paper clipped.
Fronts only, but still 8 pages.
Fronts only, and like 14 size font. But you know,
I'm ready.
I haven't been in college in a while, so I forgot what MLA and APA formatting was.
No, this is good.
Anyways,
I have a notebook.
So we're gonna start out with stats. Then we're going to go to some, like, psychopath questions that are not serious at all. So if they get them right and or wrong, it's not a big, big deal. They're just riddles.
Right.
But if they do get them wrong, I will think they're a psychopath. And then...
Oh, if we get them wrong? Okay. No, sorry. I'll wait.
And then we will delve into the murder that I will try to get Bailey and Molly to solve. Yes. It is currently unsolved, so if they solve it tonight, we have to be famous by tomorrow. So, here's to hoping.
So, Bailey, what exactly are you writing down? Like, what do you need this notepad for?
Molly, we're gonna solve a murder here. Like, I don't know how you plan to do that, but I came to win.
Well, I don't take notes very well, so I don't know what I need to be taking notes of.
I love taking notes.
Bailey was an English major. She majored in taking notes.
Anytime I took notes in school, it was just copying it straight from the board. Like... And I hated when teachers were like, paraphrase this. Like, no, I can't.
I'm not going to paraphrase it yourself.
I'm going to write it as fast as I can.
Okay. So, to start off, just some few things about true crime. A serial killer is defined as a person who has 2 or more victims during incidents occurring in separate events at different times. So, this separates serial killers from mass murderers. Mm-hmm. Mass murderers are people who kill people all at the same time. Mm-hmm. So like mass shootings or things like that. The FBI's elite serial crime unit's John Douglas said that there are 25 to 50 active serial killers in the U.S. right now.
Oh, wow. That's like one for every state.
That's what I was just going to say.
State.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that fun? In the 80s, there was reportedly over 600 serial killers active.
What was it about the 80s? That was Zodiac Killer time too, right?
No, it wasn't.
Never
mind.
I
guess police crime DNA testing, that wasn't a thing?
Yes. Like, yes,
I
all of what she just said was correct.
Molly sure just said a bunch of words.
But they were all correct. Like, police
Thank
didn't
you.
really care about a lot. No, I don't want to say that. Police didn't have, like, the technology to do what we can do today. So we think about the 70s and 80s and we're just like, oh my god, y'all weren't doing your jobs, when it was like a lot of things were just blown off. Like, it wasn't a big deal. Like, a lot of kids were lost to runaways. So when you reported a kid missing, the first thought was runaway, and they didn't really look into it. And like then they would look into it when it's too late, and that wasn't really the cop's fault because there was a vast majority of children running away. But you also had, like, most parents left every door unlocked, every window unlocked, left most doors open. Kids were at home.
My parents still do that.
Yeah, like latchkey kids were a whole thing. So during the 80s, the serial killers that were some of the notable serial killers were the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, Jeffrey Dahmer, and the Green River Killer. The Green River Killer. All of those being serial killers. And in the 70s, Those are your more prominent, famous serial killers. John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, and the Zodiac Killer were all in the 70s.
Okay.
Some notable 21st century serial killers is the Craigslist Ripper, the Daytona Beach Killer, and the Eastbound Strangler.
I don't think I've heard of any of these, so I don't know if you want me to... I don't know. I don't know if I want you to pop my bubble of
No, it's fine.
Security.
I don't have to tell you. All 3 of those are unsolved, though.
Oh, boy.
Sorry. Most of them, like, Eastbound is in New Jersey, the Daytona Beach Killer is in Florida, and the Craigslist Killer is in Long Beach. I didn't really see Mississippi on literally any list.
And thank you for not seeking it out.
So, I tried to.
Okay.
We don't have many. Most of our murders, unsolved and or solved, are like civil rights things from back a while ago.
Yeah.
Still very, very awful.
Unsurprising.
But unsurprising. So, another fact. A lot of famous serial killers have 3 names. Like, we name them with their first, middle, and last name because John Gacy could be your next door neighbor, but John Wayne Gacy is the serial murderer.
Okay.
So, like, that's
now,
the thing.
I see ahead in your notes a little bit. Is the next part our
yes, the
our
next
test?
part
okay,
is our
so
test.
I'm going to not look.
Don't look. Okay. Molly, are you listening?
Yes.
So, I think we have, like, 8 questions. 5 questions.
Ooh, okay.
5 questions.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Listen closely.
Mm-hmm.
A man was found dead with a cassette recorder in one hand and a gun in the other. When the police came in, they immediately pressed the play button on the cassette. He said, "I have nothing else to live for. I can't go on." Then the sound of a gunshot was heard. After listening to the cassette tape, the police knew it was not a suicide, but a homicide. How did they know? The Jeopardy music will play, and then we will see who has the right answer.
Okay, wait. Will you read it one more time?
Yes. A man was found dead with a cassette player in one hand and a gun in the other. When the police came in, they immediately pressed the play button on the cassette. He said, "I have nothing else to live for. I can't go on." Then the sound of a gunshot was heard. After listening to the cassette tape, the police knew it was not a suicide, but a homicide. How did they know?
Either the gunshot didn't match what gun it was, or it was a different voice saying the message.
Molly, what's your answer?
The tape had to stop, I'm assuming.
Molly got it right.
What?
Somebody had to press stop, or it would have just kept recording.
But don't they run out of space? Wouldn't
It
it stop
would-
eventually?
I just feel like...
If the answer is, if the man shot himself while he was recording, how did he rewind the cassette tape? If they pressed play and then it played his message.
What happens if we get them right or wrong?
That wasn't part of the right or wrong thing.
That just means I should be a detective, obviously.
Oh, no! I can't let that happen.
That's more of a detective
I
thing.
gotcha.
There is one in here that on that My Favorite Murder podcast, they said, if you get this right, you're a psychopath or something.
Right.
But like,
don't tell us which one.
It was on this list, so it's not. That's not true.
Okay.
This is like a child's riddle list.
Oh, well, okay.
Number 2.
One in the hole.
A man is found murdered on a Sunday morning. His wife calls the police, who questions the wife and the staff, and are given the following alibis. The wife says that she was sleeping, the butler was cleaning the closet, the gardener was picking vegetables, the maid was getting the mail, and the cook was preparing breakfast. Immediately, the police arrest the murderer. Who did it, and how did the police know?
The maid. Mail doesn't run on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. The maid.
Boom! There it is.
Number 3. A man murders his wife with a knife in their car. Nobody is around to see this. He throws her out of the car, being careful not to leave any fingerprints on her body. Next, he throws the knife off of a cliff into a gorge where it will never be found, and he goes home. An hour later, the police call him and tell him that his wife has been murdered, and he needs to come to the scene of the crime immediately. As soon as he arrives, he is arrested. How do they know he did it?
Because how did he know where the scene of the crime was if he didn't do it?
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
You answer them before I can answer them.
Well, okay, I'll let Molly go next.
Okay. Number 4. A girl was attending her mother's funeral where she met a man. She was very intrigued by the man and was interested in getting to know him. As she was making her rounds, she realized the man had left. A week later, she murdered her older brother. Why did she murder her brother?
I feel like it has something to do with the rounds part, but I don't know what it is. I give up. Bailey can answer it.
My turn.
Mm-hmm.
The man at the funeral must have been her brother, and she just now discovered that, but I don't know why she would murder him.
See if I know answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the psychopath test.
Okay,
If
good.
you got this right, which neither one of you did, you're
Good,
a psychopath.
good. Uh-huh.
So the answer is she can meet the guy again. She's
Oh.
assuming.
Oh, no!
She's assuming that if he came to her mother's funeral, he would
We
come
come
to her
to the
brother's
brothers?
funeral.
No!
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
So good on y'all.
Okay. Yeah,
Yay.
okay.
I was worried I was gonna get that question, to be honest. Just because I've watched so many like crime shows, I thought I'd be able to like figure it out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Last question. A wealthy man lives alone in a small cottage. Being partially handicapped, he had everything delivered to his cottage. The mailman was delivering a letter one Thursday when he noticed that the front door was ajar. Through the opening, he could see the man's body lying in a pool of dried blood. When a police officer arrived, he surveyed the scene. On the porch, there were two bottles of warm milk, Monday's newspaper, a catalog, flyers, and unopened mail. The police officer suspects it was foul play. Who does he suspect and why?
It was the newspaper guy.
You have to say why.
Because they only found the Monday paper and it was Thursday.
Congrats, you guys.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the milkman, because
No,
milk,
the police,
I flipped it.
The police officer suspects the newspaper delivery person. The absence of Tuesday and Wednesday's newspapers indicate that the delivery person knew there was no one there to read it.
There you go. Good job.
Congrats, you got... My friends could be detectives. Okay.
That's our new podcast.
Detectives.
Yeah.
Our three detectives.
Yes.
So are you ready for the murder?
Yes. Well, I mean, as ready as one can be.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is this is a real life murder.
This is a real life murder that happened in real life.
A true crime, one might say.
It is a true crime. I built this up in my head so much, and I did so much research.
You did. You did a good job. I'm very proud.
If you know anything about it, just ignore it.
Hashtag Larsa Ravenclaw 2018.
Griffin Claw. So today we will be discussing the murder of JonBenét Ramsey.
Oh,
okay.
I
actually
love
don't
this
know a lot about
case.
this, so I'm glad.
Did I not ask you?
You did ask us.
Do you know everything about it?
No.
Okay, what do you know about it?
I don't know like the details, but like I know what happened.
Just loves it.
Okay, good. So a little girl died. Molly knows that.
Yeah.
So everybody knows that. Okay, good. JonBenét Ramsey. To set the scene, JonBenét Ramsey was born in the year 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia.
I know she was born in Georgia.
She was the youngest of 2 children and was a child beauty queen. She was murdered in Boulder, Colorado in 1996. According to statements by authorities, either the late night of December 25th or the early morning of December 26th, 1996. Christmas.
Aww.
Patricia Patsy Ramsey, JonBenét's mother, realized her daughter was missing. She had found a 2.5-page written ransom note on the kitchen staircase. The note demanded $118,000 for the child's safe return. The only people known to be in the house on the night of JonBenét's death were her immediate family, her parents, and her brother Burke. The ransom note contained specific instructions that police and friends not be contacted, but Patsy called the police at 5:52 a.m. She also called family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the call and arrived at the Ramsey household within 3 minutes. They conducted a cursory search of the house, but did not find any sign of forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement and came to a door that was secured by a wooden latch. He paused a moment in front of the door but did not open it. JonBenét's father, made arrangements to pay the ransom. A forensics team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed that the child had been kidnapped, and JonBenét's bedroom was the only room in the house that was cordoned off to prevent contamination of evidence. No process was taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends and the family's minister arrived at the house to support the Ramseys, and victims' advocates also arrived at the house. Visitors picked up and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, possibly destroying evidence. Boulder detective Linda Arndt arrived around 8 a.m. with the goal of awaiting kidnappers' instructions, but there was never an attempt to claim the money. At 1 p.m., Detective Arndt asked John and a family friend to search the house to see if anything seems amiss. John and the friend started their search in the basement. John finally opened the latch door that Officer French had failed to open and found his daughter's body. JonBenét's mouth was covered with a white blanket and tape. John immediately picked up the child's body and took it upstairs. Each of the Ramseys provided handwriting, blood, and hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours, and Burke, who was also interviewed within the first couple of weeks following JonBenét's death. The autopsy revealed that JonBenét had been killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. There was no evidence of conventional rape, although sexual assault could not be ruled out. Although no semen was found, there was evidence that there had been vaginal injury, and at the time of the autopsy, it appeared her vaginal area had been wiped with a cloth. Her death was ruled a homicide. The autopsy also revealed a vegetable or fruit material, which may represent pineapple, which JonBenét had eaten only a few hours before her death. Photographers of the home taken on the day when JonBenét's body was found show a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. Both her parents say that they did not remember putting the bowl on the table nor feeding pineapple to JonBenét. Police reported that they found JonBenét's brother Burke's fingerprints on the bowl, but the Ramseys have always maintained that Burke slept through the whole thing until he was awoken several hours later by the police. In December 2003, forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBenét's underwear to establish a DNA profile. The DNA belonged to an unknown male person. The DNA was submitted to FBI's CODIS, but did not match any profiles. In October of 2016, new forensic analysis revealed that the original DNA actually contained genetic markers for 2 individuals other than JonBenét. Any questions so far?
The blood sample that they just found,
Mhm.
did they run it against the family's samples that they gave earlier?
I believe so, yes. I feel like if they hadn't, it would have been.
Yeah.
I think that goes into the whole it didn't match either of the families. It's an unknown
Okay.
male, but now it's an unknown 2 male.
Okay.
I find it suspicious already that I think it might be the brother.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, it's the only reason I don't think it's the brother is because he gave DNA samples. Because it's weird that the parents both said that he slept through it, like they're trying to cover up.
Yeah,
for him.
it's like, how would they know anyway if he slept through the whole night?
Yeah.
Do we know what their alibis are? Was that in there?
They don't, have one.
Okay.
Weren't the parents
Each other.
Weren't the parents the prime suspects?
By some people. Let's get into that.
Okay.
Some information about the case. It was Christmas, and the cops that were sent out were new and inexperienced. That's a very prominent thing that a lot of people around this case say on both sides, who believe that the family did it and who believe that somebody else did it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time agree that the cops that were sent out were the ones who didn't want to be there, had to come in on Christmas, didn't really care, didn't spend that much time. The guy walked down to a locked part of the house and just said whatever. There was only 2 guys sent out that day, so it was
Can you, sorry to go back a little bit, how long was it between the time the guy saw that the room was locked and by the time that they unlocked it? Like, it was still all in the same, investigation, right?
6 o'clock. It was the next day. It was
Okay.
So at 5:52 in the morning on the 26th, she called the cops. Sometime on the 26th, they found the body.
Okay.
$118,000 from the ransom letter that the ransom letter demanded is almost the exact amount, the exact value of a bonus John Ramsey had received earlier that year, which is suspicious. How would anybody know that?
Yeah.
In the ransom letter, there were misspellings of simple English words, but the word attaché was spelled correctly.
Are they really French?
Possibly. No, I don't know about their.
Okay. I mean,
but JonBenét's name has a
accent.
Has the
Which way?
Ague in it.
Good job.
So, and this attaché also has the accent ague.
Right.
So, that type of
Yeah.
inconsistency is notable.
Mm-hmm.
So some people say, was this on purpose to throw off investigators, or was it an accident in a hurry? Because things with double S's were spelled wrong, so business and possession and other words like that. And there was a woman on Reddit actually who said that she is from Canada, and they have to learn French as a second language, and a lot of Canadians apparently have the problem with S's, but they can do perfect French because they learn that. So that's something to note. The FBI stated that the ransom note was unusually long, and they told police that it was very unusual for such a note to be written at a crime scene. The police believed that the note was staged because it did not have any fingerprints and included an unusual amount of exclamation marks and acronyms. The note and a practice draft were written with a pen and a pad of paper from the Ramsey home, meaning that somebody had time to write 2.5 pages twice.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yes. Like I said earlier, the autopsy reports that a cause of death was strangulation coupled with the trauma to the head. Evidence proves that JonBenét was hit only once in the head, causing her skull to break and split, thus causing her brain to bleed and swell. The break in her skull caused no outward bodily harm and no injury could be seen. So, it wasn't somebody hit her on the head with something and she started bleeding and it was obvious that she was dying. It was like they hit her, she went down. They may not have known that she was dead. They might have thought she was either unconscious or playing.
Yeah.
Because there was no marks to be seen.
So
but it caused a skull
strangulation
fracture.
killed her, right?
So later I'm going to talk about it, but they hit her on the head and that caused massive a skull fracture and massive brain bleeding, which would have eventually killed her.
Mm-hmm.
But then she was strangled, which was what, coupled with the head trauma, did kill her.
Right.
So if she hadn't been strangled, she would have died eventually. But at the time of strangulation, that's what sent it over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that was purposeful or another part of the staging that's theorized is no one will ever know.
Mm-hmm.
There are two possibilities for the skull fracture and the other injuries. The killer was trained enough to know how to deliberately render her unconscious and do catastrophic internal damage without breaking the skin, but didn't care 2 hours later and used a ligature to strangle her and leave all kinds of damage, or the killer thought she was dead already and the ligature purpose wasn't strangulation or torture either way, but pragmatic, moving her, as some suggest, staging. So some people think that during the staging process, they drug her by her strangle.
Whatever they used.
Drug her to wherever she was, and in that movement, killed her. Possibly the strangulation could have been a red herring to conceal what actually happened. So some people suggest that other things took place, and the strangulation was just we didn't hit her on the head, it was just strangulation.
Yeah.
No rage injuries and no real evidence of torture were seen. There was evidence of vaginal penetration with a foreign object, with material consistent with a paintbrush used to strangle her, and there was blood in her underwear, but it was not as violent and as torturous as sexual assault usually is. So what that means is if an intruder did come in, if this was somebody who wasn't close to her or something, you usually see anger and more like vicious attacks because they don't care about it. But in cases where somebody cares about the victim, you see less rage and more, what have I done?
Yeah.
And then it's like the cleanup, which is what we're seeing,
Yeah.
or what people think we're seeing. And there wasn't like a lot of people don't think that it was sexually based because there wasn't more sexual assault evidence. There was a paint tray that was placed over a spot of urine in the basement where JonBenét's body was found. This could have been when she died and when she lost control of her bodily functions, or this could have been transfer from her already wet underwear from wetting the bed. The paint tray was moved, and the paintbrush that was in the paint tray was used to kill JonBenét. There was tape on her mouth that was supposed to look like it was put there to keep her quiet, but the tape trapped mucus behind it, therefore proving that it was applied after death. So she was already quiet before the tape suggesting staging. So, in an article I read, it said that there was like evidence that she couldn't breathe when the tape was put on her mouth. So why would you put tape on someone who can't scream?
Yeah.
Without that being staging. The staging goes further as the binds around her wrists were loosened, but evidence proves that they were put on after death. So they were either left loose intentionally or by mistake. So either somebody was rushed when binding her to make it look like they bound her to keep her still, or they were coming back to tighten them later. Some theorists assume that they were left loose so that the murderer could come back and tighten them later. Another nightgown was found near the body. It is assumed that this was intended to be used to redress her at some point. The body had obviously been moved from where she had died and was found closer to the wine cellar. Some people believe the murderer meant to put her in the dark, cold, locked wine cellar to keep her there as a waiting place, then transfer the body to a different location where she would be found dead, which matches the ransom note. Because the ransom note said, don't call the police, don't call your friends, or we'll kill her. And so if this was a intruder that would have hidden her and then come back and gotten her, or her parents who would have hidden her and then had time to go dispose of her body and then come back and say, well, we did this, so she died.
This is awful.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Just to make sure we got that in there.
Yeah, no, it's one of the worst cases in the U.S. right now. It can never be solved for more reasons that I'll get into later. So during the investigation, the parents were early suspects, but by October 1997, the police had over 1,600 persons of interest.
Wow.
Errors in the investigation, including loss and contamination of evidence, lack of experience and technical staff on the investigation, evidence shared with the Ramseys, and delayed informal interviews with the parents made the investigation difficult. There are two types of theories about the death of JonBenét Ramsey. The intruder theory is the one pursued by the Boulder District Attorney's Office, with whom the Ramseys developed a relationship. Police were suspicious of the parents, but because of the evidence, such as the unidentified boot print that was left in the room where JonBenét was found, and the foreign DNA in her underwear, police looked into the intruder theory. Early suspects included neighbor Bill McReynolds, who played Santa Claus, a former family housekeeper named Linda Hoffman Pugh, and a man named Michael Helgoth, who died on apparent suicide shortly after JonBenét's death. Luce Smith, who was a lead detective who worked with the district attorney, concluded that an intruder had committed the crime. Smith's theory was that someone broke into the Ramseys' home through the broken basement window, which John Ramsey, the father, confessed to have used a lot because he would forget his keys or come home drunk, and he knew that this window in the basement was broken, so he had pushed up a suitcase under the thing and would climb in. So, continuing Smith's theory is that the intruder was to have subdued JonBenét using a stun gun and then took her down to the basement. JonBenét was killed and a ransom note was left. Smith's theory is supported by former FBI agent John Douglas, who had been hired by the Ramsey family. Smith resigned after a case was brought against the Ramseys, and until his death in 2010, he spoke out declaring the innocence of the Ramseys. Others believe that because of her beauty pageant fame, she could have attracted the attention of child pornographers and pedophiles. It was determined that there had been more than 100 burglaries in the Ramseys neighborhood in the months prior to JonBenét's murder. There were 38 registered sex offenders living within a 2-mile radius of the Ramsey home. Smith had accused Gary Howard Oliva, a registered sex offender, as the murderer. He was later arrested for 2 counts of attempted sexual exploitation of a child and 1 count of sexual exploitation of a child. In an A&E broadcast in 2016, it was concluded by Dr. Lauren Kobalinski that due to DNA evidence, an intruder committed the sexual assault and murdered JonBenét. So theories connected to that and other evidence. There is a whole thread of people who believes that John Ramsey was involved in a child sex ring and that he had made people mad and they had come after his child, or that he had worked with these other people to kill his child. Stun guns don't make sense because they don't stun into silence. It's very loud and painful, so somebody would have heard if she was stun gunned.
Yeah.
And the broken window as an entrance and escape route, but the suitcase was surrounded by undisturbed trash and other family things that are in a basement. So people don't think that somebody could have come in there without disturbing that. Do you have any thoughts on the intruder theory?
I feel like those are really far reaches, like accusing him.
Is there any evidence that he's in a sex ring?
Yeah, but to say accusing him of being in a sex ring is very...
There's like, I think that's all like far-fetched. Like, people have evidence, like, people have evidence for a lot of things, but it's just like you're blowing one thing out of proportion, or like you're doing a lot for a little, and I don't believe any of it, so I didn't really include it. I didn't include anything except for that, but just to mention that that is one thing that people skepticize.
Remind me again when the ransom note was found?
Before she called the police.
What time? Like that was the 5 a.m.-ish? Okay.
She found the note before that. And there's a lot of people that say that she put on makeup before calling the police, that she cleaned the house before calling the police. Like, in different interviews, she said different times for things, but that's another...
Where was it? Just like, was it
on
in
the kitchen
house?
Stairs.
On the okay. When did JonBenét die?
I never saw a specific time, but it was either like late night on the 25th or early morning on the 26th.
Okay.
So the family member theory, Boulder police initially concentrated almost exclusively on John and Patsy Ramsey. According to Greg McCary, a retired profiler with the FBI, Statistically, it is a 12 in 1 probability that it's a family member or a caregiver who is involved with the death of a child.
Mm-hmm.
The police saw no evidence of forced entry, but they did see evidence of staging, the ransom note, bindings, extra clothing, etc. The police did not find the parents cooperative in helping them find their daughter. Their reasoning why they were not cooperative is because they thought they would be put under a full investigation and an intruder would not be. I don't understand that logic.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be helpful because they don't want to be the center
Yeah.
of the investigation. If it was like, I feel like if it was my child or somebody that I love,
You would
literally
clear
let
it
me
up.
do anything.
Yeah.
So one theory is that Patsy Ramsey struck JonBenét in a fit of rage after a bedwetting episode and then strangled her to cover up what happened. Patsy did not have have a history of anger, though, and Burke, the son and brother, later said that, quote, "We didn't get spanked. Nothing of the sort. Nothing close. Nothing near laying a finger on us, let alone killing your child." That's a 9-year-old boy that says all of that.
Mm.
That's a lot for a 9-year-old boy to come up with by himself.
Yeah.
And that
Okay,
not
I
have been,
didn't
like-
realize he was that young.
He was 9. So, for him to say all of that, and that not have been, like, coerced or fed to him,
Mm-hmm.
and this is all speculation on my part, but that's a lot. Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of the murder, was interviewed by investigators at least 3 times. The first 2 interviews did not raise any concerns about Burke. A review by a child psychologist stated that it appeared that the Ramseys had a healthy, caring family relationship. In multiple interviews, multiple sources from different offices, the DA's office, the Boulder Police, etc., all said that Burke was never a suspect. I don't understand why.
It's because it was probably back in the 90s and he was 9, so like...
No one ever expected a 9-year-old. Like, you never expect a child who killed another child.
I mean, granted, I've watched too many crime shows, but I remember on Criminal Minds, there were episodes where the child...
I was going to say, this reminds me of a specific Criminal
It
Minds
probably was based after
episode
it.
that now I'm wondering if it was, now that I know
Yeah,
like
they
all these
covered
details.
up. They
I
tried
know
to
they
cover
do
up
that a
for
lot.
the son, and he ended up, he was a psychopath. Like...
Yeah, the one that like killed his brother in the basement.
Yeah. He like was
Yeah.
he like choked him with like toys or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was an actual psychopath. So like, and the FBI was like, you can't protect a psychopath. Like your child is a psychopath.
So, a $100,000 reward was offered by the Ramseys in a newspaper ad on April 27th, 1997. 3 days later, they submitted to They submitted themselves to separate formal interviews for the first time. In 1999, Colorado Governor Bill Owens told the parents of JonBenét Ramsey to quit hiding behind their attorneys and quit hiding behind their PR firm. In 1999, a Colorado grand jury decided to indict the parents. The indictment cited 2 counts each of child abuse and said the parents did unlawfully, knowingly, recklessly, and feloniously? That's a word, right?
Yes.
Permit a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation that posed a threat of injury to the child's life or health, which resulted in the death of JonBenét Ramsey. The district attorney at the time refused to sign the indictment, saying that there was a lack of evidence, which is like what most of the case is based on. Like, that's the problem. There's a lack of evidence. So theories about that. Yet again, the $118,000 is the amount that John received as a bonus. The Ramseys were rumored to be having money troubles. They lived in a very prominent part of Boulder. At the time, they owned a private plane. They did a lot of these things, but the pictures of their house at the time doesn't match their perceived persona. Like, their house just looked wrong when you like look at the pictures. It's like, that's not even knowing it in context, just like knowing it out of context. It's just like, that's strange. The staging follows in line with if the Ramseys wrote the ransom. So, if the Ramseys wrote the ransom note, she called the cops. She didn't think that they were going to arrive that soon, or even if they were, she thought they were going to walk around or whatever. She was going to call everybody, tell them to come over. Then John was going to go hide the body in a place where you could find it. They were going to find it. They were going to say, oh my God, which they said multiple times, they're going to kill her because we called y'all. Like, she said that during her little time where she called her friends and they were all over while the police were there. So she was already talking about the death when she was supposed to not know that she was dead yet. The 911 call has a lot of odd pronouns. There's a lot of profilers and a lot of investigators who like go over 911 calls and see which ones are real and which ones are fake. And there's a lot of evidence backing that Patsy's 911 call is fake because she calls JonBenét the child or my child or whatever, but she doesn't place like the correct pronouns. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I know what the correct pronouns are, but like she has like a lack of emotion, which in current times a lot of people are scrutinizing because you can't define somebody's emotions and everybody doesn't have the same emotions. But at the time it was very like, that doesn't sound right. Like it was very to the point. It sounded scripted. Like it sounded like she had thought about it, written it down, and was possibly reading it. In the early morning, it's early morning, and Patsy calls friends and family over to a crime scene and lets people clean up. I'm not gonna call you guys if Sam dies. Like I'll call y'all, but y'all can't come over. If Sam gets murdered, that's not my first instinct, and that I thought that was common sense. According to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, there are indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey. However, they could never prove it. A lot of FBI investigators and handwriting experts say that it's Patsy's handwriting. And there are, so like the notepad that they wrote, that whoever wrote on, wrote the note, and it transferred onto the second page. So there's actually 3 that you can read, and they've all been seen, and there's other, like, you can see other writings from, like, random things that people would take notes on in the kitchen, and those seem to match. Like, they can see other traces of other words, and those seem to match. Another theory is that Burke did it after getting mad at his sister. So, one theory is that, the night of the murder, they were at a Christmas party, and, like, this is all true. So they were at a Christmas party, they came home late, and then nobody knows what happens. So some people theorize that they got in, and the kids were whiny and wanted to play, and were excited about Christmas, and one of them wanted a snack, so Patsy made JonBenét pineapples, and sent her in the dining room to go sit down, and sent Burke into the dining room with the pineapples, because the only 2 fingerprints on the bowl were Patsy's and Burke's. Sent them in. He didn't have a spoon, so JonBenét got mad and sent him back in for a spoon. She ate a couple pieces with her fingers, and then when he brought the spoon out, she said something or he said something, and somebody ended up throwing a fit, and in that fit, they both got in trouble because Patsy was tired and John was tired. They both got in trouble and sent to their rooms early, and Burke was mad at his sister for getting him in trouble, and he hit her with something, probably on accident, but it was forceful enough that it killed her, knocked her unconscious. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to say, so he took her down to the basement to stage something, or he got caught by his parents, and they had to hide it because they wanted to portray this prominent family.
Right.
And then this was this whole
Yeah, that's literally exactly what I was thinking. I think regardless of what happened, it was probably an accident. And I bet the hit on the head was an accident, and then the strangulation probably makes it sound like, that's what makes it sound like it was her brother. Because, like, you know, a child...
Like how do I kill somebody?
Right, like I can imagine a child, you know, accidentally hitting somebody, you know, they think that person, like, she could have been, like, knocked unconscious or something.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my gosh, she's dead.
Well, that's essentially what she was doing. She was knocked unconscious.
Yeah.
She wasn't killed until the strangulation.
And so he, like, freaks out, thinks he has to, like, strangle her.
Yeah.
To...
Well, I mean, the amount of times that I've hit Amy, like, pissed at her, and hit her and not known my own strength, and, like, she's gone down, and it's, like, that whole, like...
Laura, are you
no. The big sibling thing of, like, you hit somebody and then you're, like, without thinking, the weapon probably hasn't even left your hand yet, and you're like, oh my god, don't tell mom, don't tell mom, don't tell mom, don't tell mom. Like, that's what you do. You're like, I'll give you anything if you don't tell mom. That's probably what it was, but she didn't come back up.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh shit, what do I do now?
Well, yeah, like, she could have been trying to, like, make a noise, and he could have, like, strangled her and been like, don't say anything. Like, thinking he was just playing, and it actually killed her, and so then he runs to his parents, and they stage it.
Yeah.
Because, like, all the stuff is so random, like, the paintbrush.
So, all of that, so, they know that They don't know where the head trauma occurred, but they know that the strangulation occurred in the basement because all of the things that were used in the strangulation were found in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
So the paint tray and the paintbrush were like always and had forever been in the basement, and whoever it was, used I know what kind of rope it is, but it's like a cable.
Jump rope. Oh.
No, it's like a cable, like in home repair.
Mm-hmm.
And so people called it a garrote, which is like an ancient. No, I don't know if it's ancient, but it's like a torture device where you tie one thing, like you have two handles, and then you strangle somebody with it, like on two sides. And people kept calling it a garrote, insinuating to the media and to the public that this person was like trained in weaponry and like how to had this like very intricate weapon, when in reality it was a paintbrush. It was a broken paintbrush with a cable tied to it, and the other end was tied to her throat. So it wasn't that. It just happened to resemble this. So when somebody described it to the media, they took it and ran with it and made it seem like, oh, this is somebody who knows what they're doing. And it supported the intruder theory, when in reality that could have just been a, what the fuck do we do? What can we do this with? And it was just the closest things around. There is a whole group of people, community of people who, and I couldn't find validation on this or like citation, like complete citation on this, but there's people say that Burke, who had to go to a child psychologist after to, one, deem if he was fine to like testify and stuff before they knew if they were going to trial, and two, to see what he would tell somebody, described a murder very similar to what happened to JonBenét, to this child therapist, lacking very minute details about it that he could have forgotten or he may have not have done. But he described hitting her, strangling her, and even like parts of the sexual assault, as boys are curious about.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, but I couldn't find accurate like citations. There are other people who say from the community that Patsy was and had always been jealous of JonBenét's fame because she was winning a lot in the pageant circle in Boulder, and that she possibly could have been part of the family's money problems, or just one of those moms wanting, like, living out their fantasies of their child, but then it not being enough. John, when he found his daughter, immediately picked up the body and completely destroyed vital evidence, possibly giving himself plausible deniability in the case. So when he got down there with his friend, and I don't know whether the detective who sent him down there sent him and his friend together, or if he asked his friend to go to further give him plausible deniability, but he picked her up and took her straight upstairs. So that whole, like,
whole thing.
If his fingerprints were on her or on the weapons or on anything, it was definitely on it now, and he has a very good excuse for why they were there.
Well, like, that's just so bizarre anyway. Like, why would you pick up your dead daughter's body and take her up where there's a room full of people? Like, I would have, like, run back upstairs, grabbed a cop or somebody, and been like, my daughter's down here. Like, yeah, that's...
I found her.
Yeah,
like,
that's
let's
super
go look.
Suspicious. But then again, I just think it's so weird that he would put her in behind a locked door, like, knowing that that's already suspicious. Like, he would have to think, like, oh, the police aren't going to go into this room. But then again, if there's a locked door, like, police are automatically going to try to get into it.
And so, like, earlier when I said that the investigators had only cordoned off her room, but the detective said, go make sure nothing's amiss, and he went straight to the basement.
Exactly, that's another thing, is that he went straight to that room. If that was the first place he looked, then that's also insanely suspicious. There's just no way you would automatically think, let me go to this locked room that, like, nobody would have access to begin with.
The police didn't even go in there, so that's where it could be.
Yeah, it's so weird, doesn't make any sense, but it's also super suspicious.
Yes. So, evidence seems to prove that none of this was planned out. It was thrust upon the family because the initial blow to the head, while wholly deliberate, was intended to hurt her, but probably not kill her. How do we know? Because that was literally the only event of assault on her. There wasn't a second hit. There wasn't overkill. There wasn't anything else done. One hit. She's unconscious, and the rest is damage control to cover up. So it's like if it was Patsy Ramsey getting pissed off and you hit her over and over again, it's one of those things. It's like I feel like we hear about it all the time, and it's just like you take punishment too far, and it's like then you end up really hurting somebody, and then you come up for air, and you're like, oh, I've done a bad thing. This was more like a turnaround, and like in my head, it's like either Patsy or Burke, more Patsy, but she turns around and grabs something, whatever is in arm's reach, hits her with it, turns back around, doesn't even think about it, and then doesn't hear anything, turns around, and she's lying on the ground unconscious. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And you go into like, I have to fix this. What can I do to fix this?
I just feel like an adult wouldn't think, I guess they would think maybe to strangle a child. I just feel like that's such a child thing to do. Like, oh my gosh, I accidentally knocked somebody it's like such a, I guess, an inexperienced killer thing to do.
Well, I would assume her parents haven't killed anyone
right,
before.
that's why I kind of wanted to backtrack.
And again, if they're just doing that to cover up the head blow, not to actually kill her.
Yeah, I think I like it more for the staging aspect of like, this wasn't a blow to the head. A blow to the head didn't kill her because you can't see that. You know what killed her? Somebody came in and wanted to keep her quiet, so they strangled her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think
like there's some type of logic. It doesn't make sense when you think about it.
I think that you could try to play it off as some stranger was trying to make sure she didn't scream because we're trying to get her out of the house. But like,
and like it goes along with she was tied up in other ways and bound in other ways, and like whatever was readily available in the basement makes sense, but it doesn't, it's not like, and I get the lack of evidence too, like, of course you wouldn't want to stab her because then you have a bloody knife somewhere, or like a bloody something somewhere. Yeah. And like, I don't even know how.
Yes, I think it had to have
a gun. You don't.
That's good.
It had to have started off as an accident. Like somebody must have gotten mad at JonBenét and hit her too hard.
Yeah. So then there's
plus she's a pageant kid. Like, no offense, Bailey, but I feel like,
hey, Bailey was a pageant kid if you didn't know.
There are some moms out there who are like super crazy about their pageant kids, you know, like. So I mean, like, there could have been something psychologically wrong with JonBenét's mom.
Patsy. Let's do this one last bit of information, and then we'll talk about some things. So there was a false confession in 2006. John Mark Carr, a 41-year-old elementary school teacher, was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand on August 15th, 2006, when he falsely confessed to murdering JonBenét. He claimed that he drugged, sexually assaulted, and accidentally killed her. With lack of evidence, his confession was deemed false. And that's the last, pretty much last that anybody's heard from about, or any new evidence or new talk about this case. Burke Ramsey did a Dr. Phil episode last year.
I was just saying, I knew something recently, like it may have been the A&E documentary that I'm thinking about, but there was something recently.
Burke did a Dr. Phil episode, and literally nothing came of it.
Yeah, so how old is he now?
Yeah, this was 30.
20?
He was 9 in 96.
Yeah, okay.
And he professes innocence. So the mom died in 2002.
She died?
Or 10. She died of cancer.
Oh.
They moved back to Atlanta after this whole thing.
Do they still live in Atlanta?
I don't know if the brother and dad still talk. I don't know if the dad is still alive. I know that Patsy died of cancer. She was in Atlanta when she died. Burke has done a Dr. Phil episode, as I said, and I don't know what John's doing. But, sad fact, no one can be prosecuted ever again because...
Really?
Something about unless there's a loophole in the justice system, which there always is.
Well, you know our justice system.
Burke has some... statute of limitations has expired.
See, I thought they didn't have those on murder.
Somebody said that today in the article that I read. So I just
Okay, no, that's fine, that's fine.
Makes sense. I don't know. Something about Burke being a child at the time, that might be it. That if he did it, he's not a
Yeah.
child anymore.
Yeah.
And then if Burke and Patsy did it together, which nobody can prove if they didn't, you can't prosecute one without the other. So since she died,
they couldn't prosecute
they can't
him.
prosecute him. As far as I can tell, I might be wrong. If we have a lawyer in the house, DM me. But yeah, I, in my mind, think it was it was either Patsy or Burke. I really don't know if John had anything to do with it besides being, like, the cover-up man. But I think either Patsy or Burke got mad, hit her, whatever. My only problem with the Burke theory is that he wasn't, from everything I read, he wasn't, like, the greatest kid. He wasn't JonBenét in any means. JonBenét was, like, their money. Like, golden egg child. Like, she was the one that brought them a lot of prestige. She was Little Miss Perfect. She was beautiful. She could have gone on to do so many things. And I don't see why you would cover up for your, like, kind of okay son who murdered your famous or almost famous daughter, 6-year-old daughter. Like, no, you wouldn't, like, hold him out to the wolves, but I feel like you would be like, hey, this happened. He didn't mean to. And, like, prominent white family in Boulder, he probably would have gotten nothing for it. I don't see why they would have covered that up if it was Burke. Unless there's so much more we're not. We don't know. So I lean more towards Patsy doing it and not even thinking about the possibility that Burke could do it. I bet now they were mad. Like, when they learned about the Burke thing, they were like, damn it, we could have used that.
Like, wait, sorry, what?
Like, I think Patsy did it, and I like, just saying that after they...
Oh, they would have blamed it on Burke
if
they... I see, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, sorry, I was...
Do you want to read it out loud?
I can. So the ransom note says, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. Exclamation point.
Why does it address the dad?
Another question. It's like, it seems like the, it'll get more into it, into the ransom note, but it's, like, very specific to his life and his
It's also
everything.
Very long.
That's
it's very
weird.
long.
Because, like, you would think if you were targeting, like, either the family or the parents, you would say
both.
But I guess that's where the child sex ring, comes into play because they're targeting John Ramsey.
Yeah.
It's all this big circle.
Okay. So, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We do, which is crossed out, respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession.
Possession is spelled incorrectly.
And so is business. Those were two of the S words Laura was talking about. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter.
That's so weird.
New paragraph. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account.
Not spelled out, but like $118, 000, period 00. Like,
yeah,
very specific.
$100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money.
Attaché is spelled correctly with the.
What does attaché mean?
Like a bag.
Receptacle.
Yeah.
Like bag. Like a duffel that you see in
the money's
movies.
in a thing.
So are these guys supposed to be foreign?
Well, hang on. Yes, they're a small foreign faction.
They don't like our country.
Okay.
When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. And that's I will call you, not we.
So she was,
up until then, they've been we.
So she was dead before midnight then, if he wrote that letter and said, I'll call you tomorrow. Unless he was talking about the next day.
Well,
either way, it was still later in the day. So
if Patsy found the note at 5, at 5:52, so 6 in the morning, and we're believing that Patsy killed her, she was dead before 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
So she was probably dead a couple hours before that, and they spent the wee hours of the morning figuring their shit out, writing.
So you think it's
drafts.
talking about like the next the 27th?
I think the time was just in there because.
Yeah.
I think it means something. It could mean something.
I'm more interested in the pronouns. They were we up until this point.
Yeah, I mean, pronouns matter. I think the time matters, and it was probably one of those things, because in one of the things I read, it said that they thought they were going to have time to go dispose of the body, and that might be what the time was, that they didn't think people would come or set up anything until that time.
So if they said, like, the next day, that gives them over 24 hours to figure out what they're going to do. So,
they have the handwriting.
Okay, so in the beginning, he says they're a foreign whatever, like...
Yes,
they.
So
we represent a small foreign faction.
Okay, so he says we, and then he says, I will call you.
Yes. It's very long. Let me get through this letter.
I don't think you're going to be able to.
We're in paragraph 2 of 4. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery.
That's why that woman showed up, Linda Art.
Sure.
She did. She showed up.
The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money, and hence a earlier delivery, which is crossed out, pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John! ! Victory! SBTC.
That's weird. So,
it's so strange.
I feel like it's obvious this wasn't this. I feel like it's just so obvious that it was somebody in the family, because if they wrote that ransom note and the time of JonBenét Ramsey's death, if it happened immediately, then what was the point of the ransom note if she was already dead?
Yeah, because
they called the police anyway. So if that was why they killed her, then those times still wouldn't match up, because she probably died
and she wouldn't have been in the house.
Huh?
She wouldn't have been in the house either. If they immediately killed her because they called the police, then how would she have gotten back in the house while they were all there?
How is it not obvious that it was somebody in the house?
There's the people who believe that an intruder did it have this thing that a lot of people dispute, that there was a unmarked vehicle outside of the Ramsey household with 2 unknown men inside watching the whole time, and that nobody ever interviewed them because nobody ever thought it was important. Nobody ever contacted them, got license plate carried by the car. And so it was this whole gamut of well, who were they? Why do they matter? And you have witnesses that say, yeah, we saw a car, yeah, we saw 2 guys, yeah, we saw this and that. And people believe that was the informants, or the people watching to make sure that nothing happened. But it doesn't make sense that okay, we have her, if the note was found at 5:52 or a little bit before however long before 5:52 in the morning, you have her outside, correct? You have her outside of the house. And then 5:52 the police are called. 3 minutes later they show up. You bring her back inside? And you leave her in the basement, not beheaded.
Yeah, they were going to behead her. They were not going to give them the remains back, and then they didn't do any of that.
They did all of that.
It's weird because it's so specific, but I don't think there's any way that it wasn't... I don't think there's any way it was an intruder, whether it was, a sexual offender or not, or a ransom guy.
It just doesn't make sense. If she was killed, immediately, after the head trauma, I guess, maybe forensics at that time can't show that or prove that. I don't know. But I just feel evidence with her body proves that it was somebody in the house that killed her.
Well, no, they can prove, so they have proven the head trauma would have killed her eventually. There was 2 hours between the head trauma and the strangulation.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah. There was 45 minutes to 2 hours between.
Either way is still long.
Either way, it's
which goes to it being a cover up.
That's a cleanup time. That's we got to get our shit together.
That's true, because if she's not waking up, they could think oh shit, we have to kill her.
Yeah. So it was proven that there was a time span between the head trauma and the strangulation, and that she was not dead, but she was not unconscious, and she would have gone into a vegetable state when the strangulation occurred, and the strangulation coupled with the head trauma caused her death. So whenever the strangulation was is when she died, but that's not like what killed her.
Physically, right?
Yeah, and then like there wasn't signs of anything else besides the penetration, but it wasn't.
Yeah, see, I think everything about it is too sloppy to be like a kidnapper, or even just
sloppy,
like,
but also like too planned. You know, like like we had time to plan this.
Too very planned if it was them, too unplanned if it was an intruder, because she was killed with stuff that was already there, abused and assaulted with stuff that was already there.
She was taken from her bedroom to the basement.
Yes, they would have had to sneak in the house, get her, leave the ransom note with stuff that's already in the house, end up killing her in the house with stuff that's already in the house.
Like, that's one of the things that a lot of people say is, no, there's not a lot of evidence, but the lack of evidence proves that it's not this and that and the other, you know?
Yeah.
So, there are doubts and skepticisms, like, why is there a mysterious boot print and the 2 blood markers and things?
With the boot print, I'm not totally sold on, because I think that that's something that they just maybe didn't check, or maybe got screwed up.
And that's another thing, is that the markers and a lot of the evidence really can't be conclusive, because people have admitted all through the investigation that we botched that shit.
Oh, that was the other thing. I totally, like, if I'm thinking about a family who has a ransom note for their kidnapped child, totally get them calling the cops, even though it doesn't say, it says, like,
yes,
not to, like, but, like,
who else are you
calling all your friends and family, being like,
and your minister,
hey, she's been kidnapped, like, all that stuff.
Come to my house.
Yeah. Like, I could get people wanting to come, but, like, you calling and inviting them, that's, hey, let's spread the news that she's kidnapped. Not...
Get as many pieces of DNA as we can into this house, spread it out, and be like, well, Terry didn't kill her, but his DNA's here. Like, nope, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But it's insane. It's never going to be solved. More than likely, it's one of those cases that, like, it's on up there with, like, the Zodiac killer at this point. Like, everyone wants it solved. Everybody knows so much about it, and there's, like, polarizing views on people who think it's an intruder, people who think it's the Ramseys, and people who have the wildest
conspiracy
theories about it. Like, I mean, there's whole Reddit threads on the 3 suspects that I talked about earlier who didn't even get any airtime because they just aren't fun. But it's just like that, and that it's a horrible murder, and it's tragic.
Yeah, it's
terrible. So sad, and it's not even close to the worst one that there is, or that there's ever gonna be, and it's just so sad that this is still happening today. Lock your doors, kids.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I've been kind of freaked out the entire time we've been talking.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to go to bed after this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, like, go watch cartoons or something.
Yeah.
Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, for real.
I used to have to watch America's Funniest Home Videos to go to bed after I'd watched, like, something scary.
Yeah.
And by something scary, I mean, like, CSI or Criminal Minds.
Yeah. I mean, that is real life is scary.
That's the stupid thing, is that I listened to that No Sleep podcast, and that really freaked me out. And like I said a couple episodes ago when I was talking about this podcast, that I wasn't as scared. But when you sit down and think about it, it's like, these are real life people doing terrible, horrible things and not giving a shit.
The terrible human nature. I don't like it, but it was definitely the family.
Oh, it was definitely.
Or someone very close to them.
Definitely.
Do you have anything fun that we can...
I would love to end on something fun.
End on... What's
I wish I knew of, like, a really dumb... Oh,
like, maybe we should... How does, like, My Favorite Murder and other things end like that?
They have to say one thing that good has happened to them in the past week.
Oh, I like that. What's your good thing that's happened in the world? Or to you. How good should it be? Because I might go with my snow cone.
That's okay. You can do your snow cone.
I had a really good apple-flavored snow cone that tasted just like an apple and even kind of looked like it was an apple because it was that white, palish color, and it was really good.
Bailey had apple-flavored ice and is really excited.
It was good, and I got it with my boyfriend and my brother, so it was a fun family outing.
My office.
Oh! I have a better one, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've never seen Indiana Jones before.
Any of them?
No. And my boyfriend really, really likes them. And my brother's, now that he's a little older and is kind of getting into, like, older movies he hadn't seen, he's watched Star Wars and stuff, so he's watched Indiana Jones, too, with Harrison Ford in it. And so they're both appalled with me for not having seen Indiana Jones.
I'm glad that...
So I watched the first one this weekend, but apparently in the car on the way home from school on Friday, my brother was like, I'm just so excited for this weekend. William's coming, and we're going to watch Indiana Jones and make Bailey watch it because she's never seen it. I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
That's so cute.
It is. It's very
That's
sweet.
very cute.
Childhood sweetness in the world.
Childhood sweetness in the world.
Laura, what's your thing?
This was actually a very exciting
I know, but you gotta...
thing for me. No, like, just being able to read. I felt like I was writing a paper.
I know, I felt like you were giving us, like, an academic presentation.
I was, like, very, like, into this.
Mm-hmm.
I liked doing the research again. But
Yeah.
I also made really neat wall hangings for my office. That I'm
Yeah, you
excited
did.
about.
They were good.
Thank you. I enjoyed
Oh, and your
them.
flyer was out in the world, because we got
I
it
made
in
a
the
flyer
mail.
that was mailed to me.
Yeah, to me.
It was mailed to you and mailed to me, apparently.
Oh, good.
We
oh,
got
good.
it today, or yesterday, I guess it was
Oh,
on my boss's
good.
desk, and I walked in and was like, I made that! And he was like, I know! That was exciting. Molly, tell us a good thing that happened in your life.
I was social this weekend.
Good. What did you do?
Oh, I went.
You went to the Taylor Swift
did go to the
concert.
Taylor
Wait a
Swift
minute.
concert.
Look what you
We're
made
gonna
me
talk
do!
about that. That was good. I'm ready for it.
Oh, shut up.
She did sing my favorite song, my anthem. You
Was she
Belong
gorgeous?
With Me.
Oh my gosh.
I was wondering if she sang old songs.
Yeah, she sang a few.
Oh, you know she's got
She
it.
sang Love Story, You Belong With Me, and Should Have Said No.
Yes.
Ah, I do like that one.
Do you like Taylor Swift? Because I didn't. I was under the impression you didn't like her,
I
so I was
don't-
surprised
I'm
when you
not
went to
as-
the
I
concert.
don't not like her.
Okay.
I'm very indifferent on her.
There are just a lot of people who are strongly against her, and I thought Molly was more in that camp for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Not
I'm
strongly.
fairly indifferent. I almost captioned my picture like this. If you didn't think I liked Taylor Swift, but you're not surprised.
That would have been good.
That would have been good.
That would have been good.
That
yeah.
would have been good. Was she gorgeous?
Oh yeah, I mean she's like perfect. It's unreal.
Was her dresses, were they very delicate?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know any others? Like, how far are you going to take this?
I don't know. My mind's just a blank space right now.
I gotta go. I gotta go.
I feel sufficiently lightened a little bit.
I'm glad. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having your TED Talk at my house.
Well, I guess that's it. Thank you all for coming again. Please find us on Twitter at ourthreecentspod. Email us at our3centspod.
Yes.
Pod
Pod,
at
yes,
gmail.com. Thank you to Kevin MacLeod for our music. Join us back next week as we discuss something we haven't decided yet. This is Our 3 Cents. My name is Laura.
I am Molly.
And here is Bailey.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.